Are you ready to be inspired? Welcome to the Buzzworthy Women podcast, where we celebrate the unstoppable spirit of women in business. Get ready to be inspired by today's guest, Angela Bell. Angela is the founder of Holistically Made Millionaires, where she helps business owners discover that growing your business and living your best life don't have to be so hard. Listen in as we explore her holistic approach to success. Angela, welcome on the show.
Hi, Tori. I'm so excited to hang out with you today. We had fun even before we pushed record.
I know. I think sometimes the green room conversation is almost just as valuable as the recorded conversation. So I'm like, we got to hit record. Let's have this conversation. Don't let anything go unrecorded, right?
Truth. Yep.
So true. So share with the audience a little bit about your journey and what led you to Holistically Made Millionaires and starting your company.
Sure. Well, when I was 27, I'm in my 50s now. I had a real health scare. I was in a wheelchair if I needed to go somewhere outside of the house and stand or walk for a long period of time. I had a lot of health issues, and I found that just working with modern medicine didn't really work for me. Um, in fact, sometimes they'd even get mad at me when they couldn't solve it. And I'm like, I'm not here for you to play God and fix it. I'm here for you to problem solve with me. And eventually I found some doctors that practiced a form of like integrated type medicine, which was pretty rare back then, by the way, because, I'm that old. And, and what I found is that I needed support from multiple different facets of medicine and psychology and spiritual and changing thoughts and realizing what kind of pressures were in my life that were affecting me that I didn't have the tools to deal with. And integrating, alternative medicine and things like that. And the basics that we just brush by, like sleep and food and joy and all of that. And I was able to make a complete recovery, which is pretty significant because at 27, they told me I had the heart of a 92-year-old. My adrenals were shot. My heart had enlarged. I had multiple autoimmune diseases. It wasn't looking so good. And I was a mother of one at that point. And I decided to lean in, and I learned how to integrate all the things that we need and not to go down the rabbit hole. If you've ever been through medicine or even building a business, you go down the rabbit hole with one particular doctor or treatment or one particular marketing person in your business, and it doesn't serve you, it actually hurts. So you need enough information, but not too much, right?
Yeah.
We only have so much time, money, and bandwidth to spend on anything, whether it's developing health or developing wealth. And then I ran a building and development company with my spouse of 17 years. And we were successful at that. And I got to walk through that general contractor process and help people build these beautiful custom homes that were beyond even the plans that they had by incorporating the best subcontractors without letting the contractors go amok, because they get obsessed with plumbing or electrical or the limestone or whatever it is they're working on. And they'll take all your budget and all your time and also make your house look weird because they're so narrow focused, right? Which is also what people do in your business when you invite them subcontractors into your business. And so I learned how to manage that really, really well. I helped people for free for a lot of years. I developed my own mindset tools. It's called Neuro Life Coaching to disrupt patterns. But eventually I left the building industry in 2008, if that means anything to you.
Yes. I know exactly what that means.
Yeah. That was really ugly. I left my marriage at the same time. That's a whole nother story. Anyway. And
a different podcast.
Yeah. And I became a single mom of two boys who was solely financially and parenting wise responsible for my children. And I took the leap at that time and decided that what I had been doing for free to help people, I was now going to do to help people and support my family. So I became a full-time coach. And eventually that led to a significant mindset company. Our favorite was entrepreneurs. In fact, we could, to give you an idea of what we were able to do, I was in an auto accident at one point. It's actually the beginning of COVID. And to give you an idea of just what our mindset does, our system, I curate groups together. I don't just put people together. Sometimes they have to wait a year for me to find the right group for them. In the meantime, they're getting coaching for free. That's how we do it. Wow. And so that they're not just standing in place, they're making progress. And then the group comes together and coming in at different levels, but having the similarities we look for is literally magical. And these are lifelong relationships and bonds that I don't have to like force. They happen because we curate them.
Yeah.
But I'm in the hospital. I have a brain injury, broken spine, broken back. COVID breaks out while I'm in the hospital. That particular cohort of clients I had at that point were brick and mortar businesses, primarily in the northeast of the United States and Australia.
Wow.
Not cool.
Wow.
Because they have brick and mortar businesses and COVID shut them down.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We had so much success and experience running this program that we had a 30% revenue guarantee on it. So they would increase their revenue by 30%. Well, they're shut down.
And on bearing on natural disaster.
Yeah. And on top of that, I can't talk. I can't look at screens. I have a brain injury. And
oh my gosh.
I was high anyway, because imagine how much pain med I had to take to deal with all that. Broken hip, broken back, everything. Broken neck. So my team and my system were all that they had. And we nailed it. It was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life because I got to see what it could do without any influence from me and when people were at their absolute bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, terror doesn't describe where they were at, right?
Yeah.
And we were able, many of them were shut down for 6 months because of their locations. And we were able to still do a 30% increase, which is great. You know, like money is a symptom. That's actually easy. It's the calm and the clarity and the influence and the leadership and the joy and the hope and the power that we were able to teach them as leaders. That gives me chills.
Yeah.
So
100%.
That's what we did with the mindset side, my friend.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, I listened to your story and it's inspiring. You know, so many adversities came in your life starting from such a young age, and you overcame that adversity. This one that you just talked about, you know, in the car accident is just another, you know, adversity that was put in your way, but you didn't let that stop you. And that's what I love about you and the story that you're telling is inspiring for people, because sometimes it doesn't have to be a major car accident, it doesn't have to be an illness. There's, you know, little things that come across our path that could slow us down, that could, you know, derail our success, but you have to have the right approach, the right mindset to get to where you are. And basically, like we talked about before we hit record, what your purpose and your meaning that you were born with, what you're meant to do to get to that point. So it's like following, you know, the adversity and learning how to overcome that so that you can be your best self and help people and serve people for how you're supposed to serve them.
Absolutely. And this has taught me things that are true wealth. There's a whole nother side to how I grow wealth and how we show people grow wealth. And we can talk about that. But I think it's important to sit here for a moment. The way this happens is your brain that you're born with, its job is to keep you alive long enough to learn something. Right? So it's really survival driven. All your brain cares about is safety, period. That's really all it cares about.
Yeah.
And that's why it lodges in the amygdala anything that you don't want again, anything that scared you, anything you didn't understand, anything that took your power away, anything that made you feel worthless, anything that made you feel unsafe. it puts it there. And every piece of information that comes from your brain, it uses those moments to decide if you're safe or not.
Yeah.
So if you haven't been able to get the treasure from those moments, people will call it, if you haven't been able to heal from it or process it, then you just constantly have things putting you in survival. But if you can learn how to process those things, then you'll come to the point where you understand that nothing is created from nothing. Like that's a law of physics, right?
Yeah.
And so if you want to create something, guess what you're going to get first? The hardship, the affliction, the pestering little whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
The frustration, the rejection, the doubt. And then using that with your soul and your mind, your heart and your mind, you elevate yourself above like this little computer that was meant to build a box for you and lie to you and tell you that you could control everything.
Right.
So for whatever reason, I don't think it's better. I don't think it's worse. It's just my experience. Yeah, I have a lot of chapters in my book of adversity, and we skipped a lot of them in talking, but it has led me to such a beautiful location to see my life. I don't go eye to eye with problems ever. I don't even see problems. When someone comes to me with their company, they have all these problems, right? Like, don't you get that sense that when people are talking about their lives or their companies, like, what do they talk about?
Problems.
Yeah. Right?
Issues.
Because the brain is trying to solve the problem. Well, they can't solve the problem. That it's not even what it's there for.
Right.
And yet that's what we're taught. Well, that's how we try to do politics in this country. It's how we try to do medicine in this country. It's how we try to do relationships in this country. How's that working? It's how we try to do business in this country. For 93% of business owners, it doesn't work and it sucks. Yeah. And that's because 7% of business owners aren't doing that. And that's why they're successful.
Yeah.
At least with what I call success.
So how do we shine a light or, hold that mirror up to those business owners that the heavy percentage that don't understand or don't know how to move forward? How do we help them to? Yes, I know. See, this is the loaded question that you're waiting for. So how do you do it? How do you help them become successful?
How long do we have? Because this is going to be so fun. I'm glad I have lunch after you. Okay. I may be eating while I'm on the podcast. Okay, here's what we got. First, let's start with an image, something that we can all kind of relate to. So Elon Musk, no matter what you think of him, you've been exposed to him, to his energy, and the man is a leader with creative vision, period. Yep. He has the same 24 hours a day that you and I have. And yet he can lead multiple successful companies, right? Yep. So we know something's there. Can you imagine him walking into a company that he just bought and said, give me all your problems, and then sitting at a table and trying to figure out all those problems with the people that are there?
Yeah, no.
Logically, it doesn't even make sense, right?
But that's what we try to do, right?
But that's what we do because we're still in our control box. So I just wanted to show you the opposite perspective that we already know it's true.
Yeah.
We just don't know how to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why it's 90% a mindset game. We'll get into the rest of the game in a minute that we have helped conquer. And that's been the big change since my accident that I took many years to figure out. But that's the biggest part. So the pathway there is to create leadership vision. Not everyone's a leader. Not everyone wants to be a leader.
Very true.
But if you're going to be a leader, you have to have leadership vision. So a leader sees a problem different than you do. They don't see a problem. They see an indicator. They see an indicator of something that they're going to turn into something else. And they don't try to fix the problem. They create themselves as a leader on a company where that problem doesn't exist. So do you want an example? Because I'm pretty sure.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure if someone was talking in concepts like this to me, I'd be like, what? Like,
Yeah.
plug it in for me. Like, put it into
Yeah,
the wall
absolutely.
so it can work, right? So I have this client named Karen in Australia. She owned a couple medical spas and an online skincare company. And she was kind of at like that point in her life where she'd wanted to retire. She'd hired a GM. She wasn't involved in the day to day. But because of COVID and some long-term problems she'd had in her company, when she went to sell, they lowballed her. They wanted her to stay on for 3 years, which is like basically putting an entrepreneur in business jail.
Yes.
It's hell because you have no power to change anything and they change everything, but then want you to lead like you always led. Like it's the dumbest thing ever. And so she was just stuck and it made her freeze. Like she wasn't at work and yet her body and her mind had so much anxiety, she was just frozen. And this was not something she was used to. Like she was used to being a very successful person and she wasn't feeling so successful and she couldn't figure a way out because if she could solve the problem, she would have, right?
Right, absolutely.
And no one wanted to buy her problems. So they were lowballing her because they knew they were going to have to fix problems.
Yeah.
So one of her problems is she was at 45% capacity. So imagine paying for your businesses every month and then only getting 45% of the revenue that you could get there. Like that's hard. And it doesn't leave a lot of room for error, right? You know, there's not
Absolutely.
as big a margin there. She was profitable. But more than the money, can you imagine retiring and just like walking away from the problems? Like, how would that feel?
Yeah, no.
I mean,
Especially
you
when
already
you
have
build the business.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you failed and like you
Yeah.
ended on a failure, right? So we were dealing with all these emotions. So we started with mindset with her. And once we had built up the mindset, she was looking at things from a different perspective. So we had two problems with employees. They were skilled employees. I don't know if you know, but I do happen to know Botox injectors and, you know, people who do fillers and stuff. I've worked with a lot of companies like that. And they're trained, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't just go hire someone off the street. You got to get an
They're,
esthetician, a
yeah.
nurse that's
They're
trained.
technicians at their craft.
And highly skilled. And then they also needed doctors. These are full-on medical spas where they have doctors in-house. And she couldn't understand why I wasn't addressing the problem. And I'm like, even if I gave you the solution today, you would just have another problem because your company has gotten stagnant at your level of leadership. And leadership doesn't change without mindset changing. Because it's not just what's your childhood wound. Yes, that's part of it. But it's also how do you see things, period.
Yeah.
Do you see it
Yeah.
like Elon Musk or do you see it like, you know, stressed out Bert on Sesame Street? Like,
Yes.
which one is it? You know?
I love that
So,
analogy.
I know where that came from. My childhood.
Yeah.
So, I have on I have what's called the Scale Squad, and we'll get into that. But these are like the superheroes that fly around with me and land on people's lives and companies that a lot of customers couldn't even afford to work with.
Yeah.
And because of what I do, they kind of see me as a general contractor with these really cool clients that are ready to go. So they'll play for free. They'll play for a very affordable hourly rate. They'll play here for things that aren't accessible to anyone else. And I did that. I brought in my leadership and culture guy who scales companies. He built $2 billion companies before he was 40. Like, I mean, he's just got it.
Yeah.
And we worked with him for 4 hours. Now, working with him, according to him, and I've hung around him enough, I can say, yes, this is what he does. He really doesn't take anyone for less than a year. But let's say he agreed to 6 months. That's going to be between $60,000 and $120,000 to work with him.
Wow.
I got her to work with him for 5 figures for 4 hours. It was very affordable, very inexpensive.
Yeah.
And because I was there, when I saw that they were trying to get somewhere and my team and I had been in her head, he was asking the right questions, but she was so used to not having that answer available because she'd been blocking it. You know, it was some childhood
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
that created who she was. I gave him a half hour and then I was like, oh, you two are brilliant, but you're not meeting. So
Yeah.
is it possible that it's this? And she was like, oh my gosh, that's it. Once we had that, then he said, do this simple step, and this simple step. She did it. And we kept supporting her as a leader and to integrate it, right? Not
Mhm.
too much, not too little, but everything she needs.
Yeah.
And this is the outcome. The toxic people left without any further ado. Now that was a real concern, because imagine as the owner, you're like, oh my gosh, are they going to take my customers? Are they going to badmouth me? Are they going to take other people with them because they're going to badmouth me? Oh my gosh, they left. And there were no lawsuits. There were no anything. We were clear on our boundaries. They left. They left us alone.
Wow.
Then a doctor who had been there the whole time suddenly decides to step up to full time. No one asked him. He just offered,
Wow.
because the shifts were, we just created a company where those problems didn't exist. Now she still had and then she put up another ad for another doctor, which she'd ran for like 6 years. And the perfect doctor left a lucrative position to come to work for her full time and was a perfect fit.
Wow.
So now they're at 95% capacity, except for I forgot one thing. They still didn't have injectors.
Mm.
And this was a huge problem, right? Because she didn't want to go steal from someone else. Like
Yeah.
she didn't want to actively like walk into someone's business and have this toxic energy. I'm going to steal this person. And that's not what she wanted. She wanted someone who was loyal, who wanted to be there, who chose her. But with COVID being shut down for so long in that part of Australia, there weren't a lot of people who went through esthetician schools. So she couldn't, her school contacts weren't helping her. And they were having a hard time, because when they would hire people, they would hire for the skill and then they would about ruin their company with the culture
Mm.
side, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said, well, tell me what the process is when you bring someone in. And turns out that she had a retired injector who's her favorite of all time, who had retired because she had 2 disabled kids. And she would come back and train these people and give them some training to do it how they like it, even though they've already been trained. And I
Yeah.
went, I know what it's like to have a disabled child at home. I bet that mom, if she could find childcare, would want to come back for consistent small periods of time, right?
Yeah.
Like low hours, and she would train for you, because then you can hire for culture and train them how you want anyways. So
Yeah.
it took 2 phone calls. She called the lady and the lady jumped and she said, okay, then I'll go find 2 nannies who specialize in disability and I will pay for it. She's like, okay.
Wow.
So now she trains all the injectors she wants plus more and cherry picks. And there's
Yeah.
all this loyalty and culture. So by the time we were done, she had a 35% increase. And you think I'm going to say in top line revenue? Nope, profit, all profit. She put 35% more in her pocket every month and didn't have any problems to deal with. So now she really did have a GM that she could rely on. And when she did show up to stay connected, because she hadn't sold, it was just fun.
Yeah.
There weren't problems to solve. So that shifted her thinking, because she
Mhm.
had such a good experience with it and there was so much trust. And because we took her through the process, we didn't just tell her to do it, we
Right.
walked it with her. Then she went ahead and called the company that had tried to buy her before. They gave her double the offer and 6 months stay.
Oh my
So she sold.
gosh.
But she went in there with all the power, because she could have hung on it for 10 more years. She didn't care.
Yeah. It's all about
So
the shift in perspective and approach.
it is, but there's a business knowledge. So I tell people it's like a zipper. Tell me if this helps you, okay?
Yeah.
The mindset side. And the mindset, it is your wounds, it is your limiting beliefs, it is all those things. But it's also leadership. It's also
Mm.
how you see business, right? It's
Mhm.
literally how your mind sees things. That's the mindset side. Then you have the business strategy side, all the tools, all the implementation. Which one do people focus on, Tori?
The tools and the implementation.
Yeah, because they're trying to solve problems.
Yeah.
And how many times have you seen people hire someone from the strategy side, and even though they did a good job, they just created more problems?
Yes.
And that's two things. Number one, they're trying to solve problems instead of creating a company where it doesn't exist. And number two, they're buying unintegrated services. Just like when I was trying to go to those doctors and they just kept shaking their head until they get mad at me and tell me to go away because they couldn't solve my problem.
Wow.
So we need to focus on creating something and gaining the knowledge, and they zip together like this. You cannot do it just this way, and you cannot do it just this way. You have to have mindset people who understand business and when it's time for strategy. And you have to have strategy people who understand when it's time for mindset. And that's what we've grown in Holistically Made Millionaires. That's why it's called that. That's why I changed the name after my accident, is I'm like, why am I not being a general contractor in business? I'm so tired of sending people out successful and then they hire someone and it falls apart.
Yeah.
Like, let's just bring all the awesome people inside. I'll have the scale squad. We'll do the mindset, and then we'll show them how to zip together and integrate both sides.
I love that. So, okay, so you mentioned this twice now. Tell us about the scale squad. So, are these like integrated partners that support the need that you have for that other side?
Yes. So we have sections. We have a marketing section, sales, operations, fulfillment, SaaS services, all things like that.
Yeah.
And it's for different levels of business, because I work with businesses that are, lower six figures where they at to mid six figures where they've proven a system or a product to a certain level.
Yeah.
But they're like, wow, I really think I know what's next, but I'm not quite sure. And it hasn't been working. All the way up to 50 million. But my sweet spot that I really love to work with in our year-long program is called Evolution, is the 1 to 3 million, because they're so easy. They're just so easy.
Yeah.
When you start getting up to 50 million, they have a little bit too, I love them too. It's just different. They have it's only private at that point. I don't put them into programs. Whereas my 1 to 3 million, I have a beautiful hybrid mastermind called Evolution, where they get private mindset coaching. They get one-on-one time with our scale squad. And then what I do in all my group interactions, and these are small groups, 8 to 12 people, that's it. Is every other week, I know what's happening in their business every week from both teams, the scale squad and the mindset. Then I meet with them and I help them integrate and learn it. Okay, where do you think you are? What do you think you need next? And there's no judgment.
Yeah.
Because we're going to convert whatever it is they come up with into a higher truth, right? So they may say, well, I just need more leads. Okay, well, let's take a look at that. And then we find out actually they're afraid of rejection. And so they haven't been even fulfilling on the marketing that they have available to them now.
Right.
So just getting more marketing is just going to cost them more time and money and bandwidth that they otherwise could be, just go get a private session with our team. Here's the target. See you in a week. Your life's going to be different. Then when they're ready, then we send them to marketing, and the marketing section, each person has red flags and green flags. And I have worked with them to understand that they're going to do no harm. See all the medicine?
I love it.
Analogies here. They're aware that, you know what, if I create more leads for this person, but they don't have a way to grow their sales, or their fulfillment can't keep up, or they don't have anybody in the finance position, I will break their company.
Yep.
And they're not so desperate and small-minded. That was a lot of judgment. I'm just going to own that. I've just seen a lot of people hurt. I've been hurt. So I'm just going to own that was a lot of judgment. They are aware that they do harm when they just say yes and they don't have an integrated product. So they would say no if there weren't
if it didn't make sense. Yeah.
In sales and fulfillment and all of that. But 80% of the time, other B2B businesses say yes.
Yep.
And they don't even know that they need to be integrated, and they don't even know that they're doing harm. That's not their intention. They're just in their own control. Hey, Pop.
Now the pup's on the podcast.
I think the pup agrees.
I think she agrees too. Oh my goodness.
What do you
Well,
think
I mean,
about all of that? I just like,
I love that because what just the perspective that you said, having that cultivated group, right? It's your scale squad. It's your
mhm,
like I said, cultivated team. And
yeah,
you know that they're going to do no harm. They have the best intentions for the people that you bring in front of them
and
for the
actual
need.
skills.
Yeah, and the skill. So not like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're not lacking in skill or technique or strategy or any
Mhm,
of those things, but they can identify if what they offer is the right time and the right
mhm.
product or service or whatever for the person that you have, them working with. And so I
And
love
they'll
that
come
because
in. They'll come
yeah,
in and work with them. So they get to experience each other and it's all paid for in the program.
yeah. And I
'Cause
love that because it's almost like I think as entrepreneurs we trust but don't verify. You know what I mean? So it's
mhm,
like we trust just because we're trusting or we're looking for solutions, but
yeah.
having this vetted sort of group that we know has our best interests is so valuable, so valuable.
And again, I think it's just sometimes what is, and it's just neutral. There isn't the judgment there that I laid on there because of my own experiences, right?
Yeah,
It's just a business that doesn't know how to be integrated, just like there's a doctor that
yeah,
doesn't know how to be integrated. And
yeah.
so they end up wasting people's time, money, and bandwidth because they're problem solving.
Mm,
So it was broken from the go get. And then we have a hard time deciding if it's going to work or not because we're ignorant to the same things that the person who's selling to us is ignorant of. We just
right.
haven't learned it yet. And guess what? The waste of our money, the waste of our time, and the waste of our bandwidth, our energy and our focus is what's supposed to teach us. It's
Mhm.
just, do you ever get to where you find that other level of looking at it? Because Elon Musk didn't just wake up thinking like Elon Musk thinks now.
Right, absolutely.
He used experiences. That's why you hear people talk about their failures as the best things that ever
Mm,
happened to them. But that's only if you get the treasure from it, right?
right.
Otherwise, it's just something sucky that happened to you.
Yeah, you got to learn the lesson.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's like my world. To me, it's pretty simple. I don't know if it sounds simple from the outside, but I do my best to explain it on the
Oh
fly.
my gosh. No, you totally did an amazing job at explaining it. And I think people can understand now why it's so important to have somebody like you to bring those two pieces together for the greater good of their success and support. So I love that. And I feel like you and I can just chat forever, right? Like we can just go on and on and on. But I'd love to have people connect with you. How can they get in touch and learn more about you and see if they can be a good fit for one of your programs?
Sure. Well, the best thing that they can do actually is to get to know myself by getting to know them.
Love
So
that.
let's rephrase that. The best thing that they can do to get to know me is to learn themselves,
Hmm.
is to learn about themselves. And so what we've done, this is like my brainchild of my career, is I've spent years building a holistic assessment that will go through every single part of your talents, your mind, your perspectives, your business metrics, your marketing, your sales, your team building ability, your culture, your product, your customer. It goes through everything. We know why you can hire, why you can't. We know why you don't have free time in your head for other projects or your life or the things you love. We know exactly why your money is stuck or decreasing. We know, yes, we know where you're feeling off. And it's absolutely no judgment. It is such a compassionate, nurturing. I almost feel like a matriarch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I'm not a mommy, not here to nurse. I'm here to nurture in a powerful way that
Hmm.
teaches you what you didn't know and doesn't make you feel stupid for not knowing it.
Yeah. That's the
Because how
best.
could you know it if you didn't know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
How could I have known it if I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And then helps you to take all those things, indicators that are going off in your life that feel like problems or stressors or disappointments, and convert them. And then that is just the assessment, and it's free. It's not automated. This is no joke for me. This is like my legacy leg of my career stuff.
I love
Um,
that.
so 15, 20 minutes, if they will gift that to themselves, then I sit down and I even work with the panel because we're
Mm,
still developing the patterns on the back end. And of course, I'm going to bring together all these world experts. These aren't people that I've hired to pay an hourly rate to work in my program. These are people who have 7 and 8 figure companies
yeah.
that are doing this because it's a beautiful place for them to give back in a way where they have confidence that they're not doing harm.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when okay, tell me this. When you're in a mastermind or something and they bring in a guest speaker, what does that do for you? Like, let's
Makes
be real.
makes you feel less than.
Sometimes, because can you do
Yeah.
anything about what they just said?
No. You don't have the steps, or you don't you don't know how to get there.
And even if they give you 3 perfect steps so you can go get on AI and do what they say or whatever,
Yeah.
what if you have a mindset block? What
Mm.
if what if you don't see how to integrate that into your business? Guess what you just did? If you solved a problem, you just created a new one.
Right.
So
Oh,
I tried that one year when I was beta testing, and I'm like, this is the biggest waste of everyone's time, including the guest.
yeah.
So I don't do that. We practice by doing semi-private because I do like to have one person to watch, and I know that sounds so gross. But I think there's another way to say it. We learn so much by watching other people go through the process that I always try to have 2 people on a call, even if they're just working on the other person's business. I got it anyway. That is not my brand at all. Or me. Um, but yeah, they can go to holisticallymade.com, and holistic starts with a W, and it starts with a W to represent wholeness and wealth and winning. And
Yeah.
so if they go to holisticallymade.com, they'll see it says start here. It's the
Yeah.
assessment. That's really where they want to go. We do walk through the assessment with them on a call if they'd like, but we also send them information after we've analyzed their assessment to
Yeah.
encourage them, show them their choices that he didn't even know they had, because
Mm.
that's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed, like, think about the last time you were stuck about something? Like, do you have one in your head? It can be personal, it can be business,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it just kind of hurt.
Yep.
And then did that one ever resolve into like you just saw it different? Do
Yeah.
you just saw it different?
Yeah.
And what was so refreshing about seeing it differently?
Because
What felt so good about seeing it differently?
it didn't feel as daunting or as much of a problem. It was just a different approach, something you just had to overcome.
And you saw what? You saw new options.
Right. Yeah. An alternative. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times when we feel stress and anxiety, it's because literally the moment we existed, we have power, we have agency.
Mm.
So wherever you think that is, well, the moment you existed, you have choices, and you never don't have choices. But when we
Mm.
focus on problems, it limits our choices. And so when you do the assessment, our biggest goal is to elevate that leadership vision and show you how many choices you didn't even know you had. And here's the thing, every time you elevate, your choices are easier and easier and easier and easier and easier. Choices in survival suck. They feel like life and death, and they actually are sometimes, right?
Yeah. Sometimes. Mm-hmm.
Our job is not to live there. Oh, I could go on and on. We're in the age of Aquarius.
Oh,
Capricorn was to destroy systems. Guess what the first day of the age of Capricorn was?
what day?
The crash of 2008. the housing crash that took my building and development company.
Interesting. Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. And look at all the systems that aren't working in our society.
Yeah.
Healthcare, economy, politics, social interaction, relationships. It's all broken.
Yeah.
Guess why? Because Capricorn busted the hell out of it.
Oh my gosh.
But remember, there are no problems. There are just indicators that are trying to give us what we want. So
Yeah.
then along comes the age of Aquarius that is humanitarian, that is
Mm.
global, that is all about innovation, building something out of love for all mankind that didn't exist before. That's what Aquarius is.
Ugh, that's amazing. I love those connections.
Yeah, and that's what we're in. Isn't that so cool? And I'm an Aquarius in my business. If you know astrology, you know that you're more than just your sun sign. You
Yeah.
know, if you walk up to you in a bar or whatever, what are you? Well, then I'm an Aries. Sure, you're shocked because the words come out of my mouth 100 miles an hour. But I'm a humanitarian, a global humanitarian in my business. So
Mm.
I'm on fire right now. And what am I on fire for? For innovation, for integration, for turning on the options so that people feel the power they already have. I don't have to empower people. I just have to turn it back on and
Yeah.
plug it into maybe a new plug-in, right?
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
it.
that's amazing. That is amazing. I seriously, I think I'm going to go take the quiz because there's so much that I can be learning. I mean, just like listening to you, I'm thinking like, okay, yes, holisticallymade.com, go in there, take the assessment and, definitely connect with Angela. She's an amazing person, as you can tell, hear, see. And I'm just excited to continue, the connection that you and I have. And I'm
Me
excited that we get
too.
to share this conversation with the listeners and the audience. So I thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was really, really fun. And you created a great space because man, the first minute we went right to it, even before we turned on record. So I
Right.
really appreciate the space you created. And I'm sure your dog contributed. So let's thank him.
Yes.
Is it a
Her.
him?
Yes, it's a
Her.
her.
Let's thank her as
Yes.
well.
She's very sweet. She's loving. She loves podcasting. Well, thank you, Angela. And I look forward to staying connected. And everyone go check out the assessment, holisticallymade.com.
Perfect. I'll see him there.